Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Hey friends, Marc Mandel here from Wow Moments. Welcome to episode number 2 of Customer Experience Unsung Heroes. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited about this show. Last week we did episode number 1 of this show with my good friend Dan Comanduli from US Cellular. We got rave reviews about that show. People loved that show. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It's here on LinkedIn, it's on YouTube, it's elsewhere on the internet. Go check it out. It's a good show. It turned out great. But I think this episode is going to be even better. Let me tell you what's going on here. And if you haven't seen episode 1, a little bit about what this show is about. Those of us like you and I who work in the customer experience space, there's so many people in this space who are there in their respective companies doing hard work day in and day out, making a difference, helping the companies to serve their customers better, producing great insights, on the insights teams, doing change management work, closing tickets, whatever it is that they're doing it to help customers have a better experience. And in some cases, I've seen that these people, these hardworking professionals who have been, making that difference for a long time in their respective companies, sometimes don't get the public spotlight that they deserve, and sometimes they don't want it. But the reality is sometimes it's just good to say thank you to people who make that difference. And the purpose of this show here is to give everybody a little bit of a spotlight so they can get the thanks that they deserve. On the last episode, as I mentioned, Dan Comanduli from US Cellular, he talked about his entire career from when he started in CPG space and then got into the credit card business, went over and worked at United Airlines, and then most recently US Cellular. He's had a heck of a journey. And he told us stories about what he learned in customer experience and research and insights along the way that just knocked my socks off. It was a great conversation. And you guys who watched it, and you should have seen the comments on the side of the screen. They were flooding in. And so thank you for those comments. Thank you for the engagement, and thank you for the support. But as I said, I think this episode of our Unsung Heroes show is going to be even better. I've asked an old friend and a good friend. I don't mean to say she's old. I'm the old guy in this conversation. Her name is Stacey Nevel, and Stacey works at a company that you probably know very well called Prudential. I'm going to bring Stacey on in just a second, ask her to introduce herself, and we're going to just sit here and talk about all the things that that Stacey's learned along the way, because she's one of the legitimate experts, and as I use in the context of this show, a real hero. So without further ado, let me bring on Stacey, and we'll have a good chance to introduce Stacey and have a good chat. Welcome, Stacey.
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
It's a great day to hang out with you. I get to learn from you for the next 15 or 20 minutes. How bad could that be?
You are too kind.
Yep.
Too kind.
I think of you as God knows how long we've known each other, as old friends. But I realize that there's a few people maybe listening into the show, as we put out the show here, that might not know you. Can you take just a couple of minutes and just talk about who is Stacey and kind of the journey that you've been on to get you here?
Happy to. So Stacey Nevel, I am currently the Vice President, Voice of the Customer with Prudential Financial. But to your point about it being the old part, I just did some quick math and realized that I make 30 years in this wonderful game last August, which is a little scary. It's a little scary.
You started when you were 4.
When I was a baby, a mere babe. But yeah, so I got my start coming directly out of college. Came into financial services, more specifically, Citibank retail bank, and started off as a banker. But still on the customer, where I gravitated to was the customer service angle of it. So in a branch, but still was about the service. How were we treating people? What kind of service were we giving? And that became a major focus of mine. So much so, I guess I was loud enough about it that I was invited to move over to our kind of back office and help run what we were calling this brand new survey thing we had going on. Phone surveys, customer satisfaction, how was your branch experience? And then how did we deal with that? So I did that for 5 or so years, left that organization, did some work with actually a utility company on employee engagement and culture. Went from there to MetLife for a moment, working on some of their products like dental and a few other places. And shortly after that, I started my 15-year stint on the vendor side of the business, which was phenomenal. I got to work with more than just financial services or one company. I got to work with retail, insurance, tech. So we were all over the place. I was working for companies that were international. So I was, getting exposure to work with other companies that also had more languages and international nuances and things like that. So very much enjoyed my time there. Again, to your point about being an OG, got started probably as NPS was being developed, maybe at the company where NPS was developed, one of those places, but had a chance to do that for 15 or so years and do everything from run projects, be project management, and grow into being a true consultant to those clients and taking that forward. And then, for the last 6 years, I've been here at Prudential, being that person for my internal constituents.
Wow, that's quite a journey you've been on for all those years. I would imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong, looking back on all those years and all those experiences that you've had, you must have learned something along the way that you said, boy, if I only knew that way back when, it would have set me in a different direction or trajectory, or to give me a huge advantage. Is there like a little nugget, like a little tidbit that you could share with us that just kind of comes to your mind, just whatever it might be, that says it would have been cool to have known this then, something you take for granted now?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's so many things that we could probably pick on that if we knew then, we'd all be rich if we could dream of AI, right? But I think there's so many things, and we can touch on so many different ways. So, is it about your career or how you grow in your career? Is it about the work you do? Is it about how you communicate, et cetera? There's so many different ways that you can go with that. But I think one of the things I'm going to pick on is something that might be a little controversial. I have some other ideas, but still, I'm gonna pick this one because I like it. Which is a theory that for a long time in the industry, the holy grail has been ROI, right? How do we determine ROI? How much is 1 point worth? What et cetera? What does it mean to be 1 point better in net promoter or satisfaction or insert metric here? And I'm going to buck that system a little bit. ROI is important. I'm not taking away from it. Understanding the value is important. But I'm going to say that had I known, especially through all the angst and all the time we have all spent trying to find that magic number or better understand that ROI is not the end all be all that we think it is. I think the end all be all is action. It's at the end of the day, we're all collecting this feedback, and our business partners and the people that hire us to get this data, what they're looking for is, what should I do next? What do I do with this? And if we can simply, easily, or make it feel simple and easily, tell people, yes, this is how you've been performing, and here's what you should do next to either make it better or maintain it. That's what people are looking for. It's at the end of the day, we want to know what to do about it.
That's so relatable. From my experience, I can't tell you how many folks that I interact with on a daily or weekly basis that are in your seat in other companies that are still, to this day and age in late 2024, still using all these methods that we all talk about here, but the mindset is chasing a score, right? Let's just pick Net Promoter, because Net Promoter has done a lot of amazing things in our industry and has done a lot of miserable things in our industry.
People have done miserable things with the Net Promoter Score. The score hasn't done anything. The number has done nothing.
That's a very fair point. I'll give you that. I misspoke. And see, that's what I mean by being able to learn from you on a daily basis, which is good. But I give credit to Fred Reichheld for doing one thing, which is getting C-level professionals curious about research, right? Curious about what's my score. Right? They want the bragging rights. They want the ability to say, well, I'm a higher than you score, amongst their peer group. And that was an interesting finding to see. Watch
and making it simple.
Yep.
Simple to administer, simple to understand.
Exactly. Because I've seen, companies when they try to make these crazy convoluted index scores where it's this times this divided by that plus 6, over 19.
That's where I started my career, and I think in the entire company, outside of the PhDs we hired from the other company who created it, and it was sound. Don't get me wrong, but I think I'm the only one who understood it. I'm the only one who could actively say, "Yep, this index is created by these 26 metrics at this weightage." And part of my tour every year was to go tell people what this really means. And yes, it's sound, but no one trusted it. A bunch of people who lived their life by numbers. They were bankers who didn't trust my numbers because they didn't understand them.
Exactly. Interesting. So, there's something when you're sharing about your background that really kind of struck as, all was super interesting, but there's one thing that jumped out at me. Mm-hmm. And makes you not just one of the original folks in this space, but a little different than some of the others. Some of us in this space have been longtime people like you, but we've either been relegated to one side of the industry, meaning the vendor side or the brand or corporate side, or the other. Either we're career corporate folks or we tend to be career vendor folks. You've had a time in each side, and you've obviously succeeded in both sides. I'm just curious from your standpoint, because of that unique point of view, is there something that you've seen on one or the other side that made it different or surprising or interesting or different than you expected coming from that other side? In other words, when you went from, let's say, the client side to the vendor side, from the vendor side now back to the client side again, you've seen obviously change. I'm curious what you think that is unique on being, I'm a vendor side person or a client side person.
So probably less observation from the original move from client to vendor side. And I say that because it was earlier in my career. In some ways, you didn't know what you didn't know. And I'd been in a few different companies in a few different areas, financial services, insurance, utilities. So my experiences were relatively different. Mm-hmm. Had some foundations there. So when I went over to the vendor side, I probably always have had that service mentality. So that made that part easier to be able to relationship lead or relationship manage and take care of clients. What I will say, and it, like I said, it was a long time ago. So we're going back 20 years when I made that move now, at least 20 years, 21. Sure. We did not have these technological advances. We were not in the same place that we are with how we do business now. And so I was on the vendor side as we developed better technology to say, we can be your hub. You can give us all your data, give us all your, the term disparate data sources, and we could make it all make sense, right? That developed probably while I was on the vendor side. And I think we spent a lot of time, it's a silly observation, but it's an observation I had when I came back onto this side. We spent a lot of time telling, clients, all you have to do is do this, and this, and give us this, and poof, we're going to make it happen, without truly understanding how difficult it can be, or it is, for the client side to, one, visualize what we're talking about,
Yep.
and two, get their hands on that data, depending on, and I think that's, there was, coming back to this side of the business, even 20 some odd years later, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So, I mean, I kind of joke about it, especially when I talk to my old colleagues in that vendor space. I'm like, now I get why people looked at us blankly when we would say, well, all you have to do is this, just it's simple, just give it to us. And they would, shake their heads and walk in the other direction or something, because they knew how difficult it could be. I think there's certain places where it's easy and there's easier. But I think in a lot of companies, especially ones that are old, like the one I'm at, and I mean that in the best of ways, because we're about to celebrate wonderful, beautiful milestones. But it's hard. It's hard to make all that data from all of those years make sense in a way. And then, on top of that, can I even share it with you? Because I've got to protect I've got to protect my company, and I've got to protect our clients and our customers and the privacy of their data. So while those things are out there to help us, we can't even use some of them. So
I've got two more questions come to my mind, and then we'll wrap this up. Two big ones, though. Two big questions. The first one, I was on LinkedIn earlier this week, and an old colleague and friend of mine named Ed Murphy, I don't know if you know Ed, he put out a poll on LinkedIn. And the poll was asking practitioners in different companies around the industry, looking forward into the new upcoming year or two, to speculate a little bit on kind of where do you think the focus is going to be? Is it more on improving the technology in the enterprise? Or is it more about change management and culture? Or is it about business process and integration? And I'm curious what your thoughts are. If you were to look at your company or what you hear about other companies, kind of in the space, where do you think, is it going to be a technology play in 25? Is it going to be a services play? What do you see the business turning into?
I'm going to give you a little bit of a cop out, but I'm going to explain myself, which is yes, yes, and yes. And I say, because one thing is that, a couple things about that. One, he's going to get an answer because there's going to, people are going to weigh in and they're going to give their answers. And so there's going to be a number one, there's going to be a winner to that, where more companies or more people think it's going to be about this, than this, than this. I think that the true answer is it depends on where your company is, where you are, and where your company is. So there are companies out there that need to make a digital transformation. And there are companies out there who maybe made a digital transformation, but now need to get the culture to jump on board with that digital transformation. So it really depends on where your company is. And by the way, there are some companies that are trying to do it all at the same time, which is difficult, right? Or in some level of succession. That I think the term digital transformation is interesting, but I think once you digitally transform, or once you're on the path to digital transformation, then you're always on the path to digital transformation, because you can never get off the train, right? Yep. If you do, then you'll be doing this all over again in 5, 10, 15 years. The whole point is to not, I can't say I transformed and stop. I have to stay on the train. I have to keep going. And quite frankly, culture too is the kind of thing that is living and breathing. So if you are not constantly caring for your corporate culture, your company culture, your team culture, that's not a train you can get off of either. And you've got to keep people, you got to keep both of those hamster wheels running. So I think the change management and culture has to be, you've got to keep that train running, and you've got to bring people along with you in that digital moment. And you've also got to understand from a digital perspective, is the digital enhancing, enabling my workforce and the work we're trying to get done, or is it hindering, or is it masking something, or is it getting in the way, or does am I providing the training and am I combining those two? They cannot happen independently of one another. I do think on the lines of a couple of things of culture and digital transformation, this concept of AI. And so it's another thing I was thinking about it can be a great enabler. It's going to be a fantastic enabler. It's going to help us hopefully do our jobs better, more efficiently. It's going to, especially in this world of do more with less, right? Hopefully it's going to help us do all these wonderful things. But I think if I look back at my career, and I think a lot of us OGs, we could speak to our data because we built it from the word the up. We can speak to our data because we analyzed it from the word the down. And every which way and sideways, whether it's Excel or the tools that have been, we knew our data in and out. We knew the demographics. We knew where it came from. We knew how we built it. We knew all of that. So we can speak like the experts or the SMEs that we are about our data. People could challenge our numbers and challenge our data because we knew it inside out. Now, when I feed that data, when I feed whole groups of that data into AI, and I'm no longer analyzing it by hand, as I should not probably, how confident am I in what it spits out?
Yep.
How confident, how much am I really going to know my data? Am I trusting the system at that point? And I think we need to find that happy medium. I'm not sure what that is yet. So I think that's part of the danger of this this digital transformation. And then how do we also teach the checking process? You really have to, I can't just rely on this thing to give me the answer. I want to be able to know my data. When someone challenges the data, I want to be able to break it down and speak to it and say, yes, that's because this group said this and this group said this. So when you put them together, you got to do blah. That's what I fear we're going to lose some of that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've read a lot about and talked to a lot of people. And by the way, you read my mind about my second wrap-up questions, all about AI. And so you got both. You get points for both in the one comment that you made.
Awesome.
You hear a lot about AI, though. You can't not hear about AI. Right. It's in every conversation, and it's evolved faster than in the last couple of years than I think at least I ever imagined it would have.
Right.
As an old guy myself, I remember using ELIZA on my Radio Shack TRS-80 computer in 1978, being able to ask it questions and get, quote, answers. But let's just say it was a toy, compared to the things they're doing now. But it seems like, to your point now, that one of the biggest challenges is consistency and transparency in AI. Because if it's not transparent, you don't know where the answers are coming from. You don't know the reliability of the answers. You don't know the data that's generating the answers. You don't know how trustworthy it is. You don't know if you're able to put your kind of good housekeeping stamp of approval on it.
Right.
Because if you're now socializing what that's spitting out, and it could be, what's the term, hallucinating, out of some of these systems now, all bets are off. And so I don't know how to really handle that.
Yeah. And there are probably things you can do about that, but I just, there are times that, you want to read your verbatim by hand just to understand it, just to make sure you can speak to it and you understand it, to make sure it's that spot check. There are times that, now, like I said, it's going to be a great enabler. We need it because we have too much data to understand and by the way, the questions, the requested actions, what the businesses, what our internal consultants want from it are coming fast and furiously. They're flying at us. The expectations of what this data is going to do for people, with people, where it's going to take folks is huge, and we just can't keep up with the demand. We need this tool, but I also need a way to be confident in what I'm saying and to know it. To really be ingrained in it.
You know what I hear you saying? This makes me think back on an article I read. Gosh, I didn't want to tell you how long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. I want to say it was a Gartner article. And they talked about AI, let's say 4 years ago. And in the context of 4 years ago, they described the letters AI not as artificial intelligence, but as they used the term augmented intelligence. And in particular, there's still the human in the loop. Right. So all this is kind of a supercharger for a person.
Yes. And
it gives them, I don't care if it's a call center representative who can get some screen pops from an AI agent that's helping guide a conversation. Absolutely. I don't care if it's an insurance claims investigator getting some information before making a final decision on whether or not to pay and close out a claim. I don't care, whatever is being adjudicated at that moment. If there's the ability to have AI help me, but I have the final vote,
Absolutely.
based on logic and common sense,
Right.
maybe that's an interesting proposition in the near term. But I hear what you're saying. Stacey, I could sit here and talk with you all stinking day. And
we've been at this a long time, Mark. We could talk this stuff forever, right?
I don't want to take more of your time or our friends who are listening time today. So I just want to say thank you to this. And where can our friends who are listening in to this or watching this, if they want to reach out and talk with you directly, how can they find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best way. I am there. You've got my name and information right there. So LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me.
Awesome. So
they could also just come bother you, Mark. But I mean,
that's fine too. That's fine.
LinkedIn is probably the best way. Yes.
Cool. Thank you again, Stacey. Good to hang out with you here.
Thank you.
Friends, 2 more quick housekeeping things and we'll wrap up this episode. 2 more programs coming up I want to get onto your radar screen. I'm going to be doing a live episode of the long show that we do called Tales from the Trenches in a couple of weeks. It's going to be just before Thanksgiving time. And what that's going to be about, I'm going to have a good friend of mine named Brandon who works at a company called Peel AI join me. And guys, if you don't know about Peel AI, check it out. I think it's Get Peel AI or getpeel.ai on the web. Imagine if you can do in-depth customer interviews at the scale of VOC surveys. Imagine if you have the ability to use AI to generate a conversational interview with a customer at any scale that you want and get real qualitative and quantitative insights. That's what Brandon and his team are building out there at Peel, and you got to check it out. It's pretty cool. The other thing I'll say to you is you guys who have been on this journey with me on these calls for a while now know that I love books on customer experience. And I got my hands on a new book that a good friend of mine, Sean Albertson, wrote recently called Customer Experience Obstacles, 4 Rocks: Reduce Effort, Drive Loyalty, Transform the Customer Journey. This is a pretty terrific book. It's an in-depth book. You're going to find it's almost 300 pages of good stuff in here. If you're here watching this show at this point and want to get a copy of Sean's book, ping me. I'll buy you a copy from Amazon and have it shipped to you. It's a great book and it's worth checking out. Sean's going to be a guest on this show coming up in about a month's time, but I wanted to give you a look at his book. And if you want a copy of Sean's book, again, just let me know. You've heard how to reach my friend Stacey on LinkedIn, or just let me know and I'll connect you guys one way or the other. Stacey and my friends, thank you for coming on this journey with me, with us. It's good to be here with you guys, and we'll see you real soon. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye now, and thank you, Stacey.
Thank you.